the world of Hunter x Hunter, there is a system that fundamentally overturned the concept of strength, vows and limitations. This is not merely a technique for powering up. It is the most cruel, yet most beautiful rule that demonstrates the true nature of Nen, that it is not just life energy, but the power of the heart. Why does this system function? Today, let us unravel the mechanism behind it and the abyss that lies beyond. Chapter 1, Belief Transcending Physics. To understand this concept, we must first look at the most iconic and shocking example, Franklin of the Phantom Troop. He possesses the ability to fire Nen bullets like a machine gun from his fingertips. To achieve this, he cut off his own fingers. Now, think about this calmly. The act of cutting off one's fingers. From a physical perspective, he simply destroyed the barrels of his gun. If you were to saw off the barrel of a real firearm, the accuracy would drop, and the risk of backfire would increase. However, in the world of Nen, the exact opposite happened. His bullets became far more powerful than they were before he severed his fingers. Why? It wasn't for a physical reason, such as air flows better without fingers. It was the risk that the fingers will never return. And it was his conviction, bordering on madness, that because I have gone this far, the power must increase. This belief acted upon his Nen. What is important here is not objective profit or loss, but the subjective conviction of the user. For example, if a person with a rare condition who feels no pain were to cut off their fingers, they might not achieve the same effect as Franklin. For Franklin, losing his fingers meant agony, inconvenience, and an irreversible price. I have paid this price, so it is only natural that I become this strong. The system of Nen affirms this paradoxical logic. Normally, we think, I made a strong weapon, so I can launch a strong attack. But vows and limitations work on the reverse logic, I am carrying a heavy risk, so it would be strange if I couldn't launch a strong attack. In other words, strength in Nen is not equal to physical energy, but equal to the total mass of one's resolve. Chapter 2, The Scale of Life and the Invisible Arbiter. Who, then, decides the weight of that resolve? The representative example is Kurapika's chain jail. He placed an extreme vow, I will not use this on anyone but the Phantom Troop. And the limitation penalty, if I break this rule, I die. As a result, despite having only recently learned the ability, he gained the power to unilaterally suppress Uvogin, a master of enhancement. But here, a question arises. If one stakes their life, can anyone become the strongest? If a person with no attachment to living lightly says, okay, I'll stake my life, would they gain the same explosive power as Kurapika? The answer is likely no. The essence of vows and limitations lies not in the objective exchange of life, but in the subjective magnitude of the loss. For Kurapika, death means failure of revenge and inability to retrieve his clan's eyes. For him, there is a regret far more painful than death itself. That is why his vow to die carries a weight worth 10,000 deaths. On the other hand, let's look at the protagonist, Gon. He tends to treat his own life somewhat lightly. For my friends, an arm or two, or even my life, is a small price to pay. If such a person were to create an ability like Chain Jail with the condition I die if I fail, the multiplier might not skyrocket like Kurapika's. Because for Gon, his own death is not recognized as such a terrifying risk. So, what was that monstrous transformation Gon showed in the Chimera Ant arc? That was not a simple vow of death. He declared, I don't care if this is the end. It wasn't just his life, he forcibly cashed in everything he was supposed to become, his future as a hunter, his human growth, his infinite potential, all for a single moment. The resolve to throw away the future. For Gon, that was a price heavier than anything else. That is why a power abnormal enough to reach even the king, Meruem, manifested. Who measures this weight of resolve? It is believed to be the highly advanced intelligence or judgment function inherent in aura itself. Aura in Nen is not just energy. It possesses the nature of a second brain that reads the user's deep psyche and truthful emotions. Even if a user pays lip service to staking their life, the aura is not fooled. The fear, regret, and obsession deep within the heart. The arbiter known as aura coldly scans the total volume of these muddy emotions and returns an output that matches them exactly. Chapter 3, Irreversible Contracts and Brain Memory. and this contract does not end once it is signed. Users grow, and situations change. It is possible to remake the vows accordingly. However, a terrifying trap lies there. I've decided to change the conditions. These words are, in essence, a confession that my past resolve was only worth that much. Going back on a vow once sworn. That act itself can be seen as a betrayal of the Nin system. Therefore, if one wishes to change a vow once set and still maintain the same power, one must impose a new vow that is far heavier, more complex, and more troublesome than before. The most prominent example is Gorlo-Lucifer. To prepare for his fight with Hisoka, he added a new function, Double Face, to his skill Hunter. But this was not free. To gain the benefit of keeping one hand free, he had to pile on new, intricate restrictions, such as more complex activation conditions and the risk of ability cancellation. If he had made this change simply because it's convenient, his ability might have gone out of control or ceased to function entirely. Furthermore, there is an absolute limit that binds ability users, the concept of memory. The processing power of the human brain, or the capacity of the soul, is finite. No matter how much you boost the output with vows and limitations, you cannot increase the memory capacity itself. The tragic example of this is Castro. He created a highly advanced double ability that combined conjuration and manipulation. The ability itself was powerful, but he made a fatal mistake. He ignored the free space in his own memory. By using up his brain's resources to create and precisely control a double, he neglected the basics he should have excelled at, like martial arts and aura flow. As a result, he lost the mental leeway to deal with Hisoka's psychological tricks. Vows and limitations are not a magic wand. It is an extremely severe business strategy of how to allocate limited resources. Only those who coldly assess their own limits and squeeze out maximum efficiency within a vow that fits their stature can be called truly strong. Chapter 4, The Domain of God and the Curse that Remains After Death. Now, we have explained this as a logical system of equivalent exchange. However, in the world of Hunter x Hunter, there are inexplicable phenomena that logic cannot explain. That is the contradiction. Why does a Nin ability know information that the user cannot possibly know? The greatest mystery lies in Kurapika's dowsing chain. This ability can detect lies or locate targets even from a video feed or a mere photograph. This is a phenomenon impossible by physical or biological standards. The fact that this person is lying exists only inside the brain of the liar. Kurapika has no way of knowing it, and that information is not embedded in the video data. Yet, the chain reacts accurately. It is as if the chain itself accesses a database where all the world's information is recorded, peering into the truth from a godlike perspective. Here, a startling hypothesis emerges. Does Aura itself possess high-level intelligence or computing functions? Consider Neil Nostrade's lovely ghostwriter. She performs perfect fortune-telling without even realizing what she is writing. This suggests that her unconscious aura arbitrarily collects vast amounts of data, environmental information, the flow of others' aura, the laws of causality, and computes the result like a supercomputer, outputting it as a poem. In other words, vows and limitations might not just be fuel to increase power. Perhaps they act as a password to gain access rights to this massive external intelligence called aura, which is usually closed off. By consciously imposing strict rules, one liberates a power close to God that lies in the unconscious realm. A ritual for ordinary people to intentionally reproduce what geniuses do unknowingly. That may be the true nature of a vow. And this system appears in its most vicious and mystical form in death. Normally, when an ability user dies, their Nin disappears. However, rarely, death itself acts as a trigger, or a strong obsession during life remains beyond the death of the flesh. This is postmortem Nin. Kurlo's sun and moon or Hisoka's resurrection command. These twist the absolute biological rule that it ends when you die. I will protect it even if I die. I will kill him even if I die. The stronger that thought, the more the aura remains in this world as an independent curse even after losing its master. Why does it strengthen after death? It is likely because the user has actually paid the ultimate risk in vows and limitations, death. The moment the vow to stake my life turns into the fact that I paid with my life, the contract is complete, and explosive energy is released. Since the user who could stop it is no longer there, the Nin becomes an uncancelable perpetual motion machine, continuing to move until it fulfills its purpose. Epilogue, the unending contract. Vows and limitations. It is the only way for humans to grasp the edge of God's power, and at the same time, it is an eternal contract that one cannot escape even in death once grasped. It is not something to be touched with light motives like convenience or a desire to be strong. Franklin's fingers, Kurapika's lifespan, Gon's future. What they offered was not just a price, but perhaps their very existence. The bottomless darkness that sleeps in the depths of Nin abilities. That is the true reason why we are so endlessly captivated by the story of Hunter x Hunter.